This is the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. It's Tuesday, it is April 18th, 2023 at 5:03 p.m. And first order of business is a call to order by roll call. And I'll do the people I see. Mike?
Present.
Rich?
Present.
Keith? Present. And Linda Escobedo and Carrie LeFleur are not present, but we do have our quorum with 3 members. Next item is approval of minutes, and with only Rich, Mike, and Keith here, the only ones we can act on are March 28th. I had also provided March 8th, but we will, for which we need Linda, Rich, and Keith. But the 3 of us were all at March 28th, so I'm hoping I can get a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll move.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Rich. Is there discussion? All right, so let's do a roll call vote. Mike?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Keith? Aye. So that's 3 in favor and none opposed. All right, thank you. Next is a debrief on the Concord Housing Roundtable, and I just wanted to say that I thought it went very, very well. I was so pleased that all of the member boards were represented, almost all with the chair sitting up with us, and we had folks from the planning board as well. So it was I think it was a great first outing for our new and expanded Concord Housing Roundtable, which included the Select Board, Planning Board, and Community Preservation Committee, along with all of the housing groups. And I want to just invite any feedback from trust members and others on the call to how they what their reactions were to it. Any comments from anyone?
I thought it was great and really quite informative. Everybody seemed to have kind of had their thoughts together, and I thought it was a good job. Casey did a great job. So did Liz and Rich. You guys all did a great job. And it was great having Marcia there subbing, but having her input was, I think, important.
Yeah, I think it couldn't have been avoided since the planning board meeting was the night before. It was a little embarrassing to be arguing for an article that had been pulled, but this isn't the place to debate that. And in the future, I just hope when the planning board makes a decision after, to pull something that the housing community is supporting, that we can have a little more notice. But I understand their meeting was just the night before.
Well, I think that on that point, that's a good point. I think that they, Linda Miller asked for more support from the housing community in the planning board, and asked people to come to the meetings and support them more, so that so maybe they're, maybe to influence that a little bit.
Okay, I mean, several of us were at the hearing where the planning board discussed it.
But I think they were making that decision the night before, and so I think that they would have liked.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's what they were saying in a nice way, like to come to their meetings and to say that on the record there when they were discussing it.
Yeah,
They got a lot of opposition. They got a lot of comments, and I think they just were like, not going to fight it for this. We'll just wait and do the fight for the MBTA zoning, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I think
on our part, and I think I've got to have either myself or somebody on our board look at every zoning board agenda. I thought the open discussion had concluded, or we would have had somebody there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a I think it was good that we had a bit of a discussion about it. I think we can do better. We've got to do better on the MBTA communities zoning and have to be more organized. And I was glad that when our roundtable was asked, will everyone pledge to be involved? And I purposely said, will we attend meetings when we're notified about the meetings? That will be there, but I knew about the public hearing. I didn't know it was the planning board that delayed the vote instead of taking a vote. FinCom took their votes at the end of their public hearing. So if the planning board had another schedule for making its decision, if the anti article people were organized about it. There's got to be some kind of heads up to go out to the supporters, because it's just I usually find out what happens at another town board meeting by watching the replay weeks afterwards, because as someone said, there's not really a good information loop about what's coming up and what's new in the housing world. So anyway, Stephanie, you.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. First of all, I think it's noteworthy we had at least 50 people in that meeting. That's impressive, I think. So that's the first thing. The other thing I thought was it was very well run. I thought the group really enjoyed the content of the meeting. I also think that, oops, did you guys lose me? Oh, I think that it's a strategy in our housing production plan to really breathe life into that group. There's a outreach awareness strategy that I think we can really, beef up and really make that group robuster, and get some meetings in the books and make it happen. So I liked it very much. It was great.
Thanks for the feedback. Other comments about the hearing of what is our roundtable as well. I like the idea that we'll meet again, and I hope we'll meet again before we close up for the summer. And there's Marcia with her hand up.
Ask for any additional comments. And I just want to, on behalf of the planning board, want to say that some of the questions that were asked and issues raised were rather complex. And rather than spend a lot of, the planning board could not have made a decision the night of the hearing. They needed to go back and research and consider some of the answers to those questions. And it was because of the complexity of that information that they discovered and realized that they felt it wasn't it wasn't an efficient use of their time to be making those changes so close to town meeting. They were afraid that it would fail anyway, and they felt that rather than create more negativity around the issue, to really just focus on the MBTA communities down the road. So that's I want to say the planning board, I think, made the right choice in this case, but that's my personal opinion, and it might be differ from some of the people here.
Yeah, thanks, Marcia, and I think that's a legitimate choice that the board that a board can make about it, its own proposal. And that it was well intentioned. They were trying to solve it, and ultimately it got too complicated to solve on with the time remaining. And that's a legitimate answer, and one that we would all understand. But it's just if there's some sort of internal communication system, so that word can go out, and it's like, well, here's what came back from town council. It's a lot. We're going to be discussing it on such and such a date. We'll at least all be there to support whatever good decision the planning board makes, because we want to do that. We want to be there constituency. So I appreciate that feedback. Thanks. And Carrie LaFleur is here, and I will note that it is 5:12 p.m. So great. Welcome, Carrie. So we were just doing a feedback on the Concord Housing Roundtable, and as I recall, Liz mentioned, with fingers crossed, that at that very moment the town of Lexington was holding their town meeting on some significant zoning that the Boston Globe has been writing a lot about. So that'll so I guess we'll all be watching what's happening in Lexington as they bring that across the finish line, and we'll. I'm glad someone else gets to go first, so we can learn from whatever maneuvers they follow to get it across the finish line. So that's great. Good for them.
Trend in how the young has been the bad. The 26
Not sure who WS is, but
and one of the uncle's quite online influences.
WS, could you mute? I don't know how to do that.
During an online campaign last year.
So you can, whoever Zoom meeting it is, can mute them.
Yeah, I don't know who this. We don't have a host.
People to know they're rich, people to know they're tasteful, but nowadays.
Anyway, it's all right. Let's continue. We had talked about a next roundtable meeting being hopefully before the summer break, and we'll just stay tuned when a decision comes out from DHCD with 2020 census data sometime in May. So as we talked about before, our world will change. We'll know for sure if we're above or below 10% and by how much. So that's important information to have. Any other feedback on the housing roundtable? All right, next item is final preparations for the 2023 annual town meeting pertaining to affordable housing. And I wanted to focus on Articles 28 and 29, which transfer funds to the trust from the CPC and the town. One of the items we'll take up in a moment is we have the proposed form of we have a template for a grant agreement between the CPC and the trust for its portion, the $1,044,000 and change. And what we have is, let's say, an immediate deadline is by this Friday. The slides for town meeting and any handout we want to have are due to the town moderator. So I should mention we are on those two articles are on the consent agenda. So it could be that if they remain on the consent agenda, that they will be that there'll be no presentation. They'll simply be voted as that the motions to approve those articles as printed in the warrant will pass. If, however, they get pulled off the consent agenda, we'll need to make a presentation for. We'll need to make a presentation for Article 29, presumably using the one that we gave at the FinCom public hearing not so long ago. And so I prepared a slide deck, which I'm going to try to screen save now, except I don't have the ability to share a screen. Oh.
Keith, who scheduled the Zoom meeting? Was it Chris Carmody?
No,
Okay.
no, no, it wasn't. And, all right, so I can't share that.
You don't
screen.
have share down at the bottom of your,
No, there's not. Nope, I don't have that.
or is it on mine?
Well,
I can screen, whoops, I didn't mean to do that, but I can screen share. I can see what I was
yeah,
working
what I
on.
want to share is what I sent out.
Well, if you don't have screen share, you can send it to me or Mike and we can screen share for you.
Well, I emailed it out to everyone who's on the
You
call.
send it, just a second, let me see if I can
Yeah,
find it. Here it is. Okay, my computer will cooperate and open it.
great, thanks so much.
So far, seems to be doing nothing. Up here, it's coming slowly but surely.
Can I just throw something out while you're waiting or
Sure.
maybe? Yeah, I was just thinking about the planning board and the articles. You know, as you move forward, you might think about in the trust, having different people, like one person be kind of the liaison to the planning board, one person be kind of the liaison with the housing authority, someone with the CHDC, and they, you know, as well as the whole trust, but that there could be to make sure that the trust has the latest, knows if there's anything in particular versus, you know, operating always as a whole board might be helpful just to simplify communications.
Yeah, that's an excellent suggestion. If anyone wants to volunteer to,
For future, I know that you have other stuff that you're doing tonight, but
yeah,
just
'cause
something to be thinking about.
yeah, and I think that, and I'm not sure how the Linda Escobedo's assignments overlap other committees, but I know she's at many committees
Sure.
as a select board member. So so we could make the assignments based on that. All right, I'm going to assume everyone has their copies of.
I opened the wrong one, the housing trust template.
Okay.
Now I'm trying to find the other one.
I have it. Is this what you want?
There it is.
Yes, that's it. Yep, thanks very much. That what this is the basically that's the slideshow. This is the slide deck that was used for the planning board public hearing, and that I just before submitting it to the moderator, I just wanted to see if there were any edits to what was in there, and maybe the key one is to look at the second slide that's in the middle of the screen right now, because it's sort of the de minimis amount of information that we would provide. You know, it's.
I think that's fine.
And it doesn't say much, but it's accurate, and it says where the money's going. If people want to
That's
quiz,
what it is.
we can tell them, but with later slides. But
Keith, do you want the handout?
yeah, could you scroll? If you could scroll down further, yeah, we'll look at the supplemental slides, and all of these slides that you're seeing here, I printed out in black and white, and I can do them on the back, you know, on the back and front of a one-page handout if we need to have it. We may not need to refer to it at the microphone, but frankly, I think that if it's on the town's website beforehand and it's available for folks to have when it's being discussed, it would be helpful to have as a reference. So the slide that's in the center of the screen talks about where the trust came from, highlights that that it's the $2 million being added to the trust would bring our balance to $3 million, and that we'd use the funds for the housing production plan, which is the next slide. The one, let me see if I made any edits to this. Yeah, the one edit I made for this is in goal number 3, where it talks about what the trust would do, pursue any other land for creation of affordable housing for privately owned and surplus state and town property. In the first iteration, it said surplus town property, and since we're actually looking at a surplus state property, I added state in. That's the only change, though, that had been made to that, to the whole slide deck. Then there's the listing of how we've spent the funds, which is useful information for the public to know, and then a calculation of what the total would be. So before I submitted that to the moderator and the powers that be for the town meeting, I just wanted to run them by this meeting to see if there are any comments or suggested edits.
This implies we've made the commitment to the unit on 1031 Main Street. We've indicated we're supportive, but I thought that was on hold given the authorities' issues with access.
Well, our only vote, we've only taken one vote on it. It was a contingent vote it was a vote approving $50,000 subject to execution of an agreement of a grant agreement, which we have not taken that next step. And likely,
I mean, based on the discussion so far, it looks like that might not happen soon. I mean, yeah, we said we'd do it, but I think the condition precedent isn't occurring, and not that we wouldn't consider it again. And I don't want to, oppose the housing authority on this, but if we're really on hold, I think we shouldn't be implying that we've committed that. But I defer to others.
yeah, I think one way to approach it is, well, I invited a motion to take it off, and people wanted to wait until after the housing roundtable. All right, so we're on the other side of the roundtable. So how do we feel about it? Shall we take it off?
I would move without, take it off, but without prejudice. I'm
Yeah.
certain to look at it again. I just think it is not a commitment of the trust at this point. So I would move to remove it.
Motion by Rich to remove the $50,000 from the presentation.
Second.
Second by Mike. Further discussion? Are you okay with that, Stephanie?
Yes, I am very much okay with that. I think
Okay.
it's consistent with our meeting, the decisions we made in our meeting, and it'll be consistent if the public, when and if the public looks at it.
Great, excellent. Well, all right, and I'm quite fine with that, and can make that edit easily enough. All right, so let's take a on the motion to how about let's yeah, on the motion to remove it, those we'll do a roll call vote. Mike,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye,
and Keith, aye. So,
Carrie's on, isn't she?
Yeah,
oh, I'm sorry.
all right.
See, I'm not looking at my screen. Carrie.
Aye for me as well.
Okay, thanks so much. Sorry for Sorry for looking down at my pad instead of looking up at my screen. All right. So, and thanks for sharing the screen. And if it's all right, so we're all set with that screen share, Carrie. Thank you. And so I'll go ahead and adjust our slide deck accordingly, and then adjust the handout. I think it's a simple enough thing to make.
Can I interject before you move
Sure.
on?
Yes.
So I think later in your meeting, you're going to be hearing a request for $38,000 for a buy down. And if you vote that tonight, would you want to include that on that slide?
Well, we would, although the comment I have from Linda Escobedo, who cannot be here, is that she would ask us not to make any decisions until after town meeting.
Oh. It's more time sensitive than that. So if a no decision would be to go forward without that buy down. And
I thought there was 90 days. I thought there was 90 days.
well, there is, but it's actually to find the buyer, not to make these decisions, right? It takes a long time to actually do the marketing, do the lottery, find the buyer, get them
Right.
to close. So we can't really wait, that long up in this initial period.
Okay, so
Without jeopardizing the deed restriction allows it to be sold on the open market if the time period isn't met, and the time period is actually 120 days.
okay.
But, anyway.
And so, yeah, I guess the answer would be, if we take a vote tonight to put it on, then it'll be on. So we can and we'll know that soon.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for raising that. Still on the subject of the annual town meeting, we've been in Article 28, the Community Preservation Committee's article. We've been sent a template of a grant agreement between the CPC and the trust for the $1,044,000 and change that would be transferred under Article 28. And I'm familiar with the template that the CPC sent to us via Concord Senior Planner Ann Clifford. And I should say that Ann's note said that with town meeting around the corner, the CPC and the trust will need to create a grant agreement. CPC or the Community Preservation Coalition offers some guidance in a sample grant agreement, which she has shared with the CPC. At their recent meeting, the CPC asked Ann to forward the template to us so that our two boards can work together to determine what a grant agreement should look like. And that's great. And we look forward to maybe even getting together jointly or whatever. I took a first cut at some suggested edits to the template, largely because the way the template is written, it's based on a specific project. There are typically two types of appropriations that are made by CPCs to housing trusts. One is basically a grant of a sum of money, or dare I say unconditional grant of a sum of money to be used for valid community housing purposes. And the other type is for a specific project or projects, which could be funds going to a trust for a specific project. This is clearly in the former category, where it was on the CPC's own motion and thankfully I'm so glad they were thinking of us to transfer the funds that had, just as the select board has for that matter, that with funds that were no longer needed for Christopher Heights and Junction Village, everyone, including CPC, the select board, the trust, we're happy to have that money be kept for generic affordable housing purposes. We weren't required or even asked to submit an application, so that where template refers to the application submitted and to a town meeting vote that reflects a particular project. I would dare say, since neither of those conditions would pertain to this proposed transfer of the trust, what I did was to just make edits that cite specifically what the article and the vote is, and Article 28, what that says, to reflect that in the grant agreement. And the only other issue, the template has the select board in a town as the signatory for on behalf of the Community Preservation Committee. And I wanted to defer to and since the format that our CPC uses for all its other grant agreements is a grant agreement signed by the town manager, not the select board, I wanted to defer to the town manager on what the appropriate form would be here, especially since it might find Kerry LaFleur on both sides of that, on the town manager side and on the trust side. And if there's and whatever the best way is to respect the right protocol to do that, we want to reflect that in the agreement. So those were the two sorts of suggestions that I had about the agreement. And I don't know if anyone has any comments.
No. How then do we proceed?
Well, I think that we should invite a joint meeting, either to, either authorize the chair to, meet with the trust or to schedule a joint meeting or something to see if we can't reach agreement on what the form should be. May not need another meeting. I mean, if we voted to submit the suggested edits for the further, to the CPC for their further, for their reaction or further proposal, that could be fine. The other thought I had about what the agreement might be, if we were going to define what a project would be, it would, I'd rather not, because we haven't approved anything. And however, what has been approved is the housing production plan, which is a whole list of projects of one sort or another. And I think it's our general understanding that with use of this, and let's talk about the $1 million and change that the CPC would be giving us under this agreement, it would be there for 3 years under the terms of this agreement. If they wanted to give it to us and we hadn't spent it in 3 years, then we have to get an extension. But that
and it's called a Coral AI Edge 2. And it's
but that
two things.
if there needed to be some reference in the agreement to the existence of the housing production plan as the guidance document for our use, I think that's a reasonable thing.
Then
I don't know what comments we have.
And so I'm gonna download some packages from Coral.ai.
Okay, so now that we're on 35, it's turned on.
You know who WS is?
I'm on my
No.
left here.
I have a feeling he's in the wrong Zoom meeting.
Raspberry Pi over SSH, so I'm under SSH Pi at the host name, which is Raspberry Pi dot local. Now you can see I'm logged in as user Pi, but I want to be a super user, so I'm going to do sudo dash. The beauty of that is.
Any way we can throw him off?
Okay, and so actually getting the Coral AI.
No, we,
And there's pretty.
No.
Unless you're the host, you really can't do that.
yeah, I don't know, yeah, I wasn't,
Right, because we're running.
the host isn't here.
So that would be Linux. And I'm just gonna start installing some of these
So
packages.
so anyway,
So I can grab this thing here and then come over here.
Well, I think
go ahead. I can't hear you, Mike. You just muted yourself.
No, I think everybody, well, no, I'm still on. Liz.
There you go.
Gary, I think, is trying to deal with as far as, my quick suggestion is that we might just authorize the chair to meet with the chair of the CPC, and together perhaps they could, you know, come up with something that looks pretty good and then take it back to the various committees. I think getting the two committees together to edit a document doesn't sound to me like a productive approach.
Okay, so.
We just have Keith and Diane see if they can hammer it out. Or one of us, I mean, Keith, if you're too busy, one of us could do it, but
No, I'm happy, excuse me, I'm happy to do it and see its way through. So Mike's motion is to authorize the chair to meet with the CPC chair to discuss further. Second by Rich. Further discussion on that motion, that works for me.
Gary may have been out of the room. The motion was for Keith to meet with Diane and see if they can kind of hammer out.
But you started the YMCA.
Jumping on, he's gonna,
You're 15, but you had to be.
person.
What do people think about SIP 2 general? Was it like seen as a crazy idea, or like do people even understand the internet back then? Most people didn't understand the internet.
I mean, really, can they hear us?
So,
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what to replay it on.
Like a pocket call.
Hi, Keith. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna jump in and I'll take control. So just give me a minute and we'll get this handled.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
So like who's made money there that no one.
All right. So Carrie, the motion is to authorize the chair to meet with the CPC chair to discuss the grant agreement further and report back.
The first thing
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and so on that, and it's seconded by Rich. So on that motion, we'll do a roll call. Mike,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Carrie,
Hi.
and Keith, aye. So that passes 4-0. Very good. Thank you all very much. Next item is housing production project updates. And with that, we can go back to Liz Rust and her presentation on 135 Baker, the resale of 135 Baker Avenue. So Liz.
Right, let me just do you all have the memo there? Let me just get my copy of that. I'm sure it's in your packet, right? Sorry.
Yeah, we all have it.
Very good. So, sorry. Here we go. Yes, so this is from the Baker Avenue homes. And so this is the first resale that's come up, and these homes were developed quite some years ago. There are two different, there's 7 homes there. There are 2 different deed writers used in the 7 homes. It's always sort of interesting going back to these projects, wondering what happened. But 5 of them used the old deed writer. So the newer deed writer was established in 2006, 2007. So any homes that were restricted before that used different versions of deed riders. Concord's practice was to use a separate affordable housing covenant, so not even a deed rider, it wasn't attached to the deed, and it was a covenant created that was recorded separately from the deed. And that was using some good practices at the time, but once the 2007 Universal Deed Rider was created, and this was created at the state level and reviewed with Fannie Mae, it included some important provisions like having permanent perpetual affordability. Nothing before that had that, and it does survive foreclosure. And so deed riders before that did not survive foreclosure. And there were a number of things made in that to allow Fannie Mae to agree to those terms. And that's been the standard ever since. So it's a very popular deed rider, and will remain affordable throughout the life of the unit, based on its methodology and calculation. So it's our practice to convert to using these new deed riders at resale so that you're always improving and taking advantage of the latest features. To do that for this particular unit would require $38,000 to sort of buy down the unit. The Concord deed rider is affordable to an 80% buyer, and the DHCD model is affordable to a 70% buyer. So in order for them to use the new deed rider, they require this $38,000 buy down. Is that enough high level? Do you want me to do more? There's a little table at the memo so that the seller gets this calculated price. The calculates out at $312,808. It's a unit in very good condition. They've done a lot of good capital improvements over time, so we always like to see that. And they have gotten 4681 approved capital improvements with depreciation. So we run the depreciation schedule. So the total amount due the seller is $317,489, and the DHCD price using current information is $279,700. Now the current information includes interest rates, which change daily. As well as the new income limits are coming out very soon. So if in fact we start marketing after the new income limits, we would have to rerun the numbers. So that's the situation.
Liz, if we do nothing, it can be sold, to somebody with any income at all, correct? I mean, there's
No. It just doesn't use it. It wouldn't survive foreclosure, and it doesn't use the latest features of the DHCD deed rider. And then on resale, it's not entirely affordable at the same level. If we're unable to find a buyer in 120 days, the seller is able to sell it without the restrictions. So there's an opportunity to lose the unit. 120 days is pretty long. So Keith has a note that the host is not allowing me to unmute. So once you're muted, that's it. You're stuck there. So it's an option for the town. It's only $38,000, and so it's not very much money for a buy down and to utilize the new deed rider. But it's of course your choice if you think that's not a good use of your funds.
So aside from the foreclosure thing, is there anything left if we don't do this that says it has to be sold to somebody with 80% AMI?
I don't know if I'm understanding the question, Rich.
Okay, I understand the idea that we're buying out the ability of someone who forecloses to sell it at market. But other than that, is there any income restriction if we don't act? That's my question. I mean, is it a question of we're buying it from 80 to 70 or 100 to 80?
You're buying it from 80 to 70.
Well, I hate to be difficult, but my reaction is we need 80% housing. We know that. We know we're going to have nowhere near enough units.
Let me make it a little bit more complicated. The sales price is calculated using 70% for DHCD. The buyer is eligible at 80%. So there's two AMIs. So what DHCD does in their deed rider, they give you a 10% affordability on the sales price. The buyer is eligible at 80%. There's no change there. Both deed riders require that. In the Concord restriction, the sales price is calculated at 80, so it's a very thin margin if you're right at making the 80% and the sales price is there. But DHCD says you're 80% eligible, but the sales price is calculated at 70% to give you a little bit more of an affordability window.
I have been unmuted. Thank you, Chris, and had one question, and that is, does the unit fall off? If we vote no on this request, does the unit fall off the subsidized housing inventory?
The state is not in the business of taking units off the subsidized housing inventory. And if it would become ineligible if we're unable to find a buyer after 120 days.
So, well,
And at that point, you would release the restriction, and DHCD may or may not take it actually off the SHI.
well, let me ask, should it be, well, I think that's a poor way to manage the SHI unit.
Well, I think there are thousands and thousands of units that are ineligible on the SHI. Every community has ineligible units, and
well, we're Concord and we're doing it right, and I'm sure we would self-report if we had a unit that no longer met SHI qualifications. So I'll ask the question again a different way. What is the risk that if we decline to fund $38,000 for this, that the unit would fall off the SHI if we appropriately reported it when it was no longer eligible?
if we're unable to find a buyer after 120 days, it would be ineligible for the SHI.
But if we find a buyer at 80%, it stays on, right?
Within the 120 days. If we find an 80% buyer within and close within 120 days, then it can remain as is using the local deed writer, which we would have to create the local deed writer. It's not a standard, it's a one-off. The monitoring is always an additional cost because you're not, this is like a Concord program. We don't use these deed writers. We haven't created, it was Peter Farrow that created these back in the day. We don't even have Word versions of them. So administratively, we would have to create a new Concord deed writer, a separate form, right? But that's, sort of, as I say, but administrative, it makes it a non-standard process, right? So that's the other reason we like to use the DHCD standard when we have an 80% buyer. And you lose the foreclosure option. But if you're focused on whether this one unit would retain on the SHI, it would be lost on the SHI if you are unable to find an 80% buyer and close within 120 days. And the 120 days period would end in the beginning of August.
I guess I don't, I got to think there would be a market at 80%. Taking it to 70%. I mean, we know we need housing for people under 100. We've got 80. I'm still trying in my own mind to reconcile paying $40,000 to it. As I see it, I see how it cleans up the paperwork, but otherwise we're just taking it from 80% to 70%.
It's just the sales price, the buyer's the same, and it gets you the standard deed writer that survives foreclosure. These are important if you go into a foreclosure situation. If you're not in a foreclosure situation, it doesn't, you don't need that protection.
Right.
But I don't know, maybe Marcia has something to add here.
I don't really have anything to add. It's just Concord Housing Development Corporation understands this and has jumped on the bandwagon and has done it in a couple of other instances. I'm struggling with your discussion. I really am. Having consistent deed writers that are easier to manage make so much sense. And if you're going to have the Concord standalone, the buyers are always going to be the same. You've got a different differential here. It's the deed writer that is the issue.
I find that's a helpful comment, because what you're really telling us is that this was a fluke. It was a one-off. It's something that existed in the past before perpetual deed restrictions were required.
Right.
And and there's no guarantee, and going forward, there's no easy guarantee that doing it some different way, some standalone way is going to allow us to continue to count the units. And I would hate to get a report back a month from now from DHCD and the census that says, oh, look, you're only 1 unit off from 10%, and you lost it, and we look around and say, oh, I guess that was that unit that we saved $38,000 on. So
the other way this works, we had a unit that had a Concord. It wasn't a one-off. This was the standard in Concord before the universal deed writer, but had the old deed writer, and it resold up on Forest Ridge, and we were able to use the DHCD deed writer and add it to the SHI when it wasn't on there before. So sometimes, just working with the deed writers creates some opportunities.
well, I think I'm convinced of the worthiness of this. And I mean, we're oh so close to 10%. I don't know that we want to risk a single unit. And if this, so, and anyway, other thoughts, other questions that folks have to feel comfortable about approving this request? Carrie, you look like you have a question.
I do. I didn't know if Mike was going to speak, so I was just waiting. You may have talked about this in the transition while I was trying to get Chris so we could unmute Keith, but I'm just a little confused about, you said that the buyers are the same at 70% or 80%.
No, I'm sorry. So there's two places that the AMI is referenced in the deed writer. One is the definition of an eligible purchaser. And in both cases, an eligible purchaser is someone under 80% of AMI. The other place that the AMI is referenced is in setting the price. The price is set so that a person at 70% of AMI can purchase the unit. So it's really two separate places in the deed writer. So the Concord deed writer says the price is set so that someone at 80% can buy the unit, and the DHCD standard is that someone at 70%. The eligible purchaser, the actual purchaser coming in, would always be at 80. And I know that's complicated.
I'm just wondering, is there some risk if we buy it down to 70 that there's no buyer at 70 where there would have been a buyer at 80?
The buyer is always going to be at 80.
Oh, okay. All right.
Do you want me to show you in the deed writer where how that looks? Is that helpful?
I don't know if that's necessary. I was trying to pull it up and I couldn't find it, but
I can very quickly get there to you. Just as I say, very quickly, but it's just just make sure it is very quickly.
And if we do approve it, I'm interested to know who are we giving the money to?
Right here, it's okay. So here's the eligible purchaser. Can you see my screen here? Is it too small? Let me just.
Too small.
Do you see that there? Eligible purchaser. Oh, this is a bad deed writer. Sorry, I picked the wrong example. Oh, sorry. Shoot. No, not this one. Sorry, I'm sorry about that.
Well, Liz is looking, what would the form of a motion be if we decided to go forward with this?
I don't know.
Okay, here you go. It's a little blurry, but here you go see an eligible purchaser means an individual or household earning no more than 80% of the area median income. And that's where the eligible purchaser comes in. And then over here, the maximum resale price. I'm sorry, it's so blurry. And it has this very long definition is the sum of the base income number by the resale price, if any, and then provided that it's really this business right down here. In no event shall the maximum resale price be greater than the purchase price for which a credit worthy eligible purchaser earning 70% of the area median income is done. So this is like in setting the maximum resale price is where the 70% comes in versus the eligible purchaser is the 80%. So they're really different pieces. And you set the sales price before you market, and then the eligible purchaser comes in after the fact. So these are really two different, one sort of theoretical, like in setting the sales price, and the other one is about the actual person. And so that the money would be given to the seller, because the seller is getting the 317, and that's going to be made up of the 279 from the new buyer plus your buy down money. So at the closing, you would come in, and that's how that would work. And you could make the motion to contribute up to, well, I say like if the income limits change, the actual dollars are going to be changed, but using the current income limits today, up to $38,000 towards the buy down of this unit. In my opinion.
Yeah, it says perhaps it would say move that the trust vote to contribute up to $38,000 to buy down the unit at 135 Baker Avenue in order to utilize the DHCD Universal Deed Rider.
So moved.
Motion by Mike. Is there a second?
Well, I'll second if Frank won't.
Well, okay, yeah, Carrie, go ahead. I mean, I'm probably gonna vote yes, even though it bothers me. We have a unit that will be affordable to our target market. We've got a risk on foreclosure. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure what we're getting, but if CHDC thinks it's worth $38,000, I guess
Well,
I'll
it's
do it.
essentially like buying an option, Rich.
Yeah,
And I don't know how to price the value of the option, but that's what to me is just an option to protect against the foreclosure.
right, yeah. Seems to me a lot of money to protect against. I do understand the protecting against foreclosure. That just seems like a lot of money. I mean,
It's a deeper affordability. You're actually selling the unit now for $279 versus $317. So it's a lower price unit for sure. I mean, your money is going to create a greater affordability to a lower income household.
I understand that.
So that's aside from the foreclosure piece, it is creating deeper affordability.
But we need units at 317 as well as at 279. I mean, let's face it, nobody can buy anything in the market at 217 or 317. But I'll defer to Liz and CHDC.
Is there, in the event of multiple buyers, is there a way to ensure that it goes to the lower household income buyer?
We would run a lottery, but no, the lottery doesn't go that way.
And so
And
if
there's
it's
other
sold-
things to consider too about the, you want to be sure this is a first time home buyer. So you want to be sure that people can afford it. They can afford the maintenance, they can afford the taxes, and that they have enough assets. So it's really, in terms of financial strength of the buyer, there's a total picture that's important.
So if it's a lottery and a higher income person is the winner of the lottery, then our money is not encumbered.
No, everyone will be under 80% in the lottery.
But not necessarily at 70.
No, we don't look at the 70. 70 is only to set the sales price.
Yeah.
The buyer eligibility is always at 80,
I said they-
period. Always at 80. The 70 is just to reduce the sales price from 317 to 279. That's the only reason the 70 comes in. And it's just how they do that calculation. They come in through the income limits and the AMIs.
And so when the new owner goes to sell, that 279 will,
That's the base.
That's the base, yeah.
That's the base. Yeah. So it makes it more affordable going forward. It gives you the protections of the new deed rider. It makes it standard for administration and monitoring. So it has just those benefits. It's really not very much money as these things go. Many times buy downs come in at the $50,000, $100,000, $75,000. So it's a modest investment to those benefits, in my opinion.
And how many other units are like this hanging, coming after this one?
So there were 5 in this development like this. So there are 4 more exactly like this. There are other units across Concord that use the same form of deed rider that have not been resold.
that are at risk of loss due in the event of a foreclosure?
Yes, that's exactly right.
That I understand.
So as they turn over, the numbers are always different. Yeah. I mean, there's another notice that we just got for a moderate income unit. That this is the other kind of opportunity, and I don't have this here for you. Of whether you wanted, you have the opportunity of buying that down to an 80% and creating an SHI unit with your money. It's a moderate 140% AMI. So, I could come back with that number, next month or something, about to see if you're interested in creating a net new SHI unit from a moderate one. But that's
What's the likely price tag?
so it's probably like 600 to 300, probably $300,000.
Jesus.
We heard that, Frank.
No, you can,
Send out your bottom, Rich.
yeah, you can let us know, but that would be, given the limited funds that we have, we should be spending our money to
Create
Well,
a
no,
unit.
as Lee Smith said, we should be spending the $3 million for 83 units. So anyway.
Well, but that's right. I mean, it's cheaper than some other proposals you'll be given to create a unit on the SHI for sure. But it's a whole different conversation. I'll say that.
Yeah, well, let's
Exactly.
deal with it when it gets there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had a motion. I did not have a second.
Yeah,
Carrie seconded it.
Okay, Carrie seconded the motion. Is there further discussion? All right, then we will take a roll call vote. Mike,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Carrie,
I,
Keith, aye. So it's a 4-0 vote, hard won. And hopefully we won't have to vote on something like this until after we have a guaranteed dedicated revenue stream from the state to help. There's a lot we could fix that way. So
Keith, you'll go back and change your slides now.
yes, I will. I will go back now. I've already I'm editing my slide to add the 38,000 for 135 Baker Ave. And thank you for mentioning that earlier, Liz, so that we're right up to date with what we tell our town meeting voters. Any other, since we still have Liz here, any other updates on Assabet or Junction Village that you might want to share? I know that the CHDC has an April 26th public forum, 6:30 p.m. on Junction Village, and that's So I guess we're all set.
What time is the CHDC hearing?
6:30. It's at the Goodwin Room at the library. I just saw the social media post
Mhm.
with the time of 6:30 on that night. Great, look forward, and it's in person. It's in person and on Zoom.
That's
at that.
correct. That's correct.
And at Fowler, is that what you said?
An hour, yeah.
An hour, yeah.
Yeah, they close up at 8, so they really want you done at 7:30.
Very good. Yeah, we should meet there for 40B hearings. That way they wouldn't run late.
I think the
But
question was at Fowler. It's at Maine.
It's at Maine, yeah.
At Maine for an hour, I think is what was said.
Oh, yes, yes.
I
wait
misheard.
for an hour.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you. Next item is.
So I'm gonna take my leave of your meeting.
Yes, thank you so much. Time well spent, boy, and you needed to put in the time tonight to get the vote. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Liz. Bye.
Thank you. Next item is trustee reappointments. We had a discussion at our meeting on March 28th to in view of the fact that all 5 of our appointments are up this April 30th, and that and apparently the initial set of appointments were made not in compliance with the bylaw, which would have required that 2 of the 5 of us be initially appointed for 1-year terms. So we would like to fix it with staggered terms, and we did take a vote at our last meeting to which indicated that that 3 of us should be reappointed for 2 years, and 2 of us should be appointed for 1 year, with the 2 being Rich, who volunteered, and Linda. And so the issue that's come up, and when I talked to Linda about it afterwards, after the meeting, we were wondering whether, because making 1-year appointments now doesn't comply with the bylaw, that the compliance comes by having the initial appointments having been made for 1 year, whether it would be possible for the select board to vote to correct Rich or amend Rich and Linda's initial terms to having expired April 30, 2022, and retroactively reappointing them to 2-year terms that would have begun on May 1st of 2022 and would end on May 30, 2024. Either way, what we did last time, or what we might do with this alternative one, would accomplish staggered terms. It seemed like town council might need to weigh in on which is the correct option in order to follow, in order to ensure that any actions of the trust taken between May 1st, 2022 and now are not subject to challenge later.
So has this been sent off to Mina, to the town council? Am I muted?
No,
No,
you're not muted. No one, I don't have authorization to do that, and Shannon, who's I've been talking to, doesn't have authorization to do it, so I don't know if it has been.
it hasn't, to my knowledge. If it needs to, that's fine, and I can talk to Shannon about that tomorrow.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think we'll be happy with either one. We'll be happy with with having staggered terms result. It simply would want to make sure that that's done in a way that complies with the bylaw.
Okay.
Anyway, and the way that Concord, the way that Concord has a rule, I guess, that says that if your term expires, you continue to serve until someone else is appointed. So so I don't see how a retroactive vote to say a term ended after 1 year instead of being current through the end of this month would. I don't think anyone would be harmed there, but I think it would be for town council to tell us if it's all okay one way or another. So, message received by Carrie, and we will, I guess, continue to serve in our appointments until someone else is, and that will be fine. Thanks. Thanks for the opportunity to discuss this. Next, we're running over time. We've got a few more items to discuss. Next is status of proposed state legislation, and I wanted to give the floor to Rich just to tell us, first remind us when Lobby Day is for LOHA, and also to tell us, I know that LOHA, from hearing from Rich, that LOHA is looking at the Senator Sears bill, which is a competing bill for the real estate transfer fee. So Rich, any update you want to do?
Yeah. Lobby Day's been pushed back to the first half of June. We don't have a specific day yet. I'll get back to you. There will be one Concord presenter. Lise Holdorf, if she's not there in person, will do a little video of her showing off the farm and talking to workers who can't live in Concord, et cetera. Yeah, it looks to me like, the disaster on the islands is likely to result in the SEER bill moving. And so we're focusing on how that would affect other towns, particularly around things such as adopting the local short-term rental tax, some of the zoning questions like the one I asked Marcia last week. So, at the moment, what the steering committee is trying to do is deal with the fact that Senator Sear, I think, is hearing the real estate industry, not giving in to them, but saying, when they say you can only get the transfer fee if you've shown you're serious about affordable housing in other ways, which produces that 4 out of 7 checklist, of which we probably make 2 and may make 3 or 4. It's going to be close. And we're trying to deal with language that will be it, or see if we can compromise with Senator Sear around language that would be more permissive of places that are not Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. For instance, not having the price ceiling or the floor at the moment is 2 times the county average, which would be probably $1.5 million for us. So it would be lower than what we've got. The problem, of course, on Nantucket is that the average is, or the median is like $3 million, some absurd number. So it's, they're going to have to deal with that in some way, I think. I'm hoping they would just come up with $1 million. We'll see. Anyhow, so that's where it is. Lobby Day, early June. Stay tuned. Mass law reform and MAPC are trying to pull together everybody's comments on the SEER bill and have a discussion with his legislative aides.
Very good. Thanks. Thanks very much. Rich, and thanks for monitoring that situation. And I mean, the hopeful news is that something might move, and then we just have to make sure that we can jump on that bandwagon, and that would be a good motivating factor for us to do it. So thanks. All right, next is on updating guidelines, and I would say let's hold that off for yet a further meeting. I know it was, I don't know, Carrie, if there might be a date that we were hoping to have staff support, and I didn't know if there was a date that we might look to look forward to having some further staff help.
Could we put that on as an item for the next meeting? We're just
Sure.
sort of getting in a routine with our 2 new staff people. Today was the beginning of week 3.
Right.
The one's going out on vacation now for the rest of the week. So
Sure, that would be a good thing to talk about. Yeah, we'd be delighted to talk about that. So let's plan to discuss staffing and to discuss the guidelines. I especially after town meeting, when we hopefully got $3 million. And by the way, Carrie, what is the date on which that money would become available to us? Is it July 1st, or is it at the
I think
earlier date?
at the conclusion of town meeting.
Yeah, that was my thought too, because it's a transfer, sort of like a town meeting within a town meeting, if you will.
It's already encumbered funds, so.
Yeah. And so all the more that I would want to make sure that by the time we have $3 million in our trust balance, that we actually have an application process that we've, I mean, we just voted tonight to give out another sum of money with no application. And I would like us to get into the routine of requiring one from here on. All right, great. So we'll put that on our next agenda. Any comments on that? Any?
I did one more update. Did that get circulated?
It did, yes. It was a while ago,
Yeah,
though.
3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and
The
I know,
comment you and Linda had made.
yeah, and I know that Linda wants to weigh in. Linda Escobedo wants to weigh in on the discussion as well. So another reason to hold it off for a later time. Okay, we are now at public comment, and I saw Stefan turn his video on. That's his tell.
If I might, just 2 quick observations on your slides, which may or may not get to be shown. One is, without disagreeing with the position on the 1031 funding, I thought it was useful to have a line through things that were considered and then reconsidered or revised as a way of illustrating to the public that these things come and go, and they're active and they're not active, and it's not a straight line, in other words. And I understand that the status of approval with respect to Grantham was different than 1031, but just conceptually, these things come and go. That was one comment. And my other comment was in the language that talked about not requesting the $500,000 in this cycle, saying not needed. And I guess I would choose some other language like not requested or something like that, because I think, as you've seen today, need is, again, something that fluctuates minute by minute, and having 3 or 4 or 5 million on hand doesn't mean that you still don't need more. So that's just my 2 cents.
Right.
point.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it says without needing, yeah, that allows the trust to continue its work without needing an appropriation from free cash this year. I think that we'll take the 2 million, you know, and yeah,
If needed,
we would have needed it, but
you could just substitute requested.
Yeah, right, just change.
yeah, okay, I like that. We will change the word to requesting an appropriation. Yeah, because we need everything we can get and more. And how do we feel about keeping 1031 Main Street in, but with a line through it? Or do you just want to take that out?
I think we voted
We took, yeah,
we voted to delete that, didn't we?
we did vote to delete it. But, and I guess so it'll stay deleted. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying add it back in, but Christopher Heights appears on this list with a line through it. So that people
Well,
have
but
it
it's not
referenced.
really dead, right? It's just not.
Yeah, I appreciate what Stefan's saying, but I don't want it. I would just remove it. I think putting it in and then putting a line through it suggests that we think it's not something we want to do, and that's not what we decided. We just felt that we weren't in a position to commit it yet.
Right.
You could write pending.
Right, so we'll we're taking out all reference to 1031 Main Street, and but we are adding in 38,000 for 135 Baker Ave. And
Right.
that's what it'll look like. Great, thank you. Thanks, Stefan, for the question. When, let's see, scheduling next meeting. When should we do that? After town meeting. Let's see, today is 18th. 2 weeks from today would be May 2nd. I think that's that's perhaps the day after town meeting. Do we want to give it another week?
Let's do the 9th.
Yeah. But how about May 9th? At Tuesday, May 9th at 5 o'clock. Does that work for you, Carrie?
Yes, it does.
Okay, all right. Rich, does that work for you?
Yes,
Okay, all right, that's doing it. We are ready then for the all-important motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second,
Motion by Mike, second by Rich to adjourn. We will do the vote by roll call. Mike,
Aye.
Rich,
aye.
Harry,
I.
Keith, aye. So the meeting is adjourned at 6:26 p.m. Thank you very much. Sorry it went so long, but I think it was an important discussion to have. All right.